Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight to our first Bridges in Mathematics night. Tonight we have some of our teachers here with us. So I'm Jill Giovanazzo, I'm the school principal. And then we have Chloe Backman, who teaches 4th grade. And then 5th grade, Caitlin Bailey, Jenna Westgate, Chris Korick, Joe Mullen, and John Agostinelli. So, So these are our teachers this evening, and we're going to take you through 3 parts of Bridges in Mathematics. First, we're going to talk to you about how we chose the program. Then we're going to give you an overview of the program and the different pieces and parts and things that you can do to look over the information, help your children, and just be a little bit more familiar with the program as a whole. And then after that, we're going to break you into 2 groups. So we have the 5th grade team will stay in here, and then 4th grade will go over to the cafeteria, and we're going to go through a number corner with you and show you some of the math talk that we use with students and show you kind of the reasoning behind how it all works and what it leads into. And then after that, we have workstation activities here for you to do to show you some of the activities that your kids can do either on paper pencil kind of things, or we offer them on Chromebooks, like there's a website for those kind of things as well. So we'll let you have some time exploring those activities while we're here to assist if you need anything. So we'll go ahead and get started and just let you know, last year, we went through a pilot program and we looked at all the different programs that we could find about mathematics when we knew we needed to adopt another program. So Mr. Molnar and the administrators went through and looked at which programs received an A+ in Ed Report. So there were 5 programs that are currently on the market that received an A all across the board. And Bridges in Mathematics was one, and then there were obviously 4 others. We spent all of last school year looking at all 5 programs, really going through them, talking to other districts, finding out what people thought of the other programs, if anybody used them, and then working through them ourselves to see how we felt like they were really going to fit. And the program that people seemed to unanimously like the most was Bridges. And so we did some explorations. We went and visited Avon last year and watched them work through the program, talked to all of their teachers. We had some conversations with Homestead Falls. We talked with a couple different places, and people were really telling us about all the growth that they were seeing from students in Bridges. They really liked the math talk that the students were able to do, and it wasn't so much just about computing problems and kind of knowing just the process to do it. It was really understanding how the math was working and how much deeper they were able to go into math once they had gone through all of the conversations. So Bridges is a lot of talking, and it's a lot of conversating, and it's a lot of playing games, and it's a lot of doing different things so that you understand the why behind math and not just understanding how to do the algorithm. So I'm going to turn it over to and then I was supposed to tell you that after that, after we made the decision to take on Bridges, we did a whole bunch of studying with it. We had 3 days of professional development this summer, and then our teacher teams met and went over things professionally, got their classrooms ready, looked through all the programs, organized it all together. And then after that, we have a math coach too that comes once a week and works with our teachers in groups to go through the program, make sure that we're getting all the information down. We're constantly finding new things that we want to implement with the program, that we're learning to fine tune, and listening to all of you folks and finding out what things you feel like you need from us to make your life easier at home with your students and learning math. So again, like I said, Mrs. Bailey's going to go over our little presentation here for you, and then we'll keep moving on.
Thank you. So we are going to start off with an overview video of Bridges, and this is available to everybody, but I'm just going to show a snapshot of it about what some other teachers across the nation who are doing Bridges have talked about and said about Bridges. But like I said, this video is available for all of you to view the full thing.
Students in Bridges classrooms learn to approach problems flexibly, using a variety of strategies and visual models. They explore mathematics in ways that build understanding instead of memorizing and mimicking procedures. The result? Students with a deep understanding of mathematics who are confident and effective math thinkers. When asked to describe how teaching Bridges impacts their students, here's what a few teachers had to say.
My second year of teaching, we started using Bridges in Mathematics, and I cannot overstate how many times I would be prepping for a lesson and think, oh my gosh, I wish I would have learned it this way.
We began to look at math from the idea of a more conceptual approach. Previous programs did not attack math in the same way. There are a lot of, here's an algorithm, this is the way you solve for this, you always solve it this way, versus truly understanding the concept.
In my Bridges classroom, I see students working together a lot, not being afraid to go out on a limb and to solve problems and to try to figure their way through things. Even when they're working in their Bridges workbooks, it still gives time where they're engaging with one another and checking each other's work.
By drawing pictures, by solving things, by arrays.
They're using cubes and 10 frames, and they're using their number racks, and they're getting on the floor and solving a problem with their friend and talking about it.
Bridges just creates that environment where they're not afraid to be wrong, and they're not afraid to help a friend if they are wrong, because they know if I am wrong, that someone's gonna help me and tell me why, and I'm gonna learn more from that.
They have the opportunity to raise their hand and tell, oh, well, I thought this, and then their friend says, well, no, I thought this.
They don't have the least bit of problem explaining their answer or picking the best answer. They want to know why.
I am able to work with my students on a personal level. When they are able to go to their tables or in their workplaces or using their workbooks, I can go around and specifically pinpoint the students who need more support.
One of the things that happens with math is people give you one way to do it. So when you run into those barriers and all you've ever taught a child is an algorithm, then the child struggles and the child cannot proceed because they don't know it. But when you teach it from a conceptual level, it's amazing the things that they can figure out.
If you give them the tools and the resources they need, they can really just blow your mind.
It's not just about learning rote facts, but it's about the communication skills, the critical thinking skills, all of these that we previously called 21st century skills, but these skills that these students are going to need to thrive in the world that they're going to be a part of. I think that Bridges really fosters that.
They're no longer being told how to do something, they're discovering how to do something. And that's incredibly empowering to them.
The changes that I see for all of our students is the amount of risk-taking, recognizing that there's more than one answer to a problem, there's more than one strategy, and the kids celebrate each other's mathematical thinking.
And to give kids multiple ways of solving problems, to promote that critical thinking, deepen that conceptual understanding, using visual models, as opposed to jumping right to the algorithm.
The growth that I've seen in the students is this ability to think. It's really noticeable that these students are able to think conceptually, they're able to think abstractly. When you present a question, there's not just one way.
When it comes to solving in more than one way, that's a life skill.
The way Number Corner plays a role in my classroom is I feel it's a really big vocabulary builder.
With the 10 frame, I love how students are able to count more efficiently.
Playing the workplace games or come sit on the floor so we can do a problem string. I like the conversations that occur between the kids, between the students.
There's a true visual aspect to Bridges.
When we introduce a workplace, students are really excited because they know that they're going to get to play this game.
We're preparing kids to apply these bits of information to new situations instead of asking them to memorize the dictionary of math. And that really allows them to be creative with their math and apply it to situations we can't even think of yet. It's so cool.
Awesome, so as you can see, there's a ton of collaboration. There's a ton of students really just thinking about how to actually conceptually do the mathematics and not just punching in an algorithm just to check off a box. So I just want to go over a few of the big components that we have when we go through our Bridges program and what it looks like day to day. First off, I want to show you what a unit overview looks like. Now, obviously, with this being a new curriculum, this is something we are constantly finding new resources or developing new resources all the time as we collaborate with each other as a math department, as we collaborate across grade levels and across with other districts and other people who are teaching Bridges across the country. And so one of these things that we have found is Bridges actually has these unit overviews where for each of, and I believe it's across the board, there's 7 to 8 units in a grade level. So across the board, every single unit has what we call a unit overview that goes, it's just 1 to 2 pages and goes over the basic strategies or the basic concepts that we're going to be covering in that unit. So this is just an example from 5th grade, Unit 2. One of the biggest concepts that at least I know parents had asked us about was how are we adding and subtracting fractions, and they use it in a way that they do like money and time to do that. And we'll talk about that more specifically when we split, but the unit overviews talk about those specific strategies that maybe wasn't a way you did it when you grew up, or wasn't a way that you've seen it in the past. So these unit overviews are super helpful for you to be able to communicate with your child on the same level of the things that they're learning in school. So these are gonna, from now on, be sent out to you at the beginning of every unit when your child starts. You're also able to access all of these online. So you can look ahead and kind of see what's coming, as well as be informed about what they're currently on. The other thing we want to develop, and that we've been developing to send home to you, are what we call these reflection sheets, which, let's see how I can make this. Well, so they're 2 pages, and this goes for 4th and 5th grade, even though this is a 5th grade example. 4th grade, Ms. Backman and I developed them together, so we know that they're the same across the board. But these are a great resource for you. These are going to be sent out to you at the beginning of every single unit. And what's great about this is, again, we attached the overviews, if you were to click that hyperlink, so that you can, again, clearly see the overview of what they're going to be learning. We broke it down. Each of the units, the 7 units, are broken into 4 modules that kind of show the key points or the key ideas of what they're going to be talking about in those modules. Then there's workplaces, which, as they said in the video, and as we're going to show you here later on, workplaces are a great way for your child to apply the skills that they have been learning throughout the Bridges curriculum. So workplaces are constantly reviewing and applying those skills. They get to practice what we've been teaching. And so we hyperlinked all of the workplaces that your child has access to and will be playing throughout the unit. Now, of course, you know, when you get this email at the beginning of the unit, they're not going to know how to play every single workplace at the beginning, because as we go through the unit, we teach the workplace and then we start playing it more and more. So towards the end of the unit, they were to have mastered and known how to play all of those workplaces. And then the last resource that we have for you at home is Bridges provides a website called Math at Home. Let's see if I can just click on the link. And so for each unit, again, there's a different set. So if you were to click on that drop down, you would be able to pick, like, step 1 would be unit 1, step 2 would be unit 2. And again, these are just going to be really great things for you to add extra support to your child. If they are struggling in math and you feel like, hey, how can I help them? What can I do to really spur on whatever they're doing in class? This is going to be a resource that's good for you. Because this resource, you can, and it's super, like, 5 minutes. So you would just go down to a game, or some of them are games, some of them are more just like questions. But again, it's getting your child thinking about math, so it's really conceptual. So a lot of questions might start off saying, what do you notice? Or do you see a pattern here? What do you think about this? What do you see? And it's not just giving answers, but more really doing observations and seeing what that leads to. So there might be 2 to 4 questions about a picture or something very simple that will help you connect your child's learning at home to what they've learned at school. So the Math at Home games are a great resource offered by Bridges. So that's the first page of these unit overviews, or these reflections. The second page is more of a reflection that your child is doing in school. So when they take what we call a pretest, which I'll explain more about those in a second, when we take a pretest, afterwards students take a reflection saying, hey, let me look over those questions, and we pair them up with I can statements, so they can say, like, I can add or subtract fractions, and they would look and they'd say, yes, I can do this, sometimes I can do this, or no, I'm not quite there yet. And so when the students get to fill that out, there's 2 big reasons I say that we fill out reflections. One is that it tells me where you're at. So if all of the students, right, in one of our classes seems to be getting all the same skill correct, we're gonna know, hey, we don't have to spend as much time there. And instead, we can focus our time on what you really need to learn, on those skills that we don't know. Two, I think it helps students set goals. So when we really want to be saying, hey, this is where I'm at now, and I want to set a goal for what I want to focus on most as we go forward throughout this unit. And so the reflection sheets look just like this, where they have the I can't statements on the left. They've got yes, maybe, there it goes. Yes, sometimes, and not yet. And then they look through and they get to pick those. What's awesome is they then get to go back before when we start to review, when it starts to come time for a study guide, and we're going to start reviewing for a test, they get to fill out this reflection again. So towards the end of the unit, they took it at the very pre-test at the beginning, and then they'll take it at the end. And when they take it at the end, if they have something still in the no column that they don't feel like they are confident or comfortable in, we've paired IXL skills up exactly with each of these bridges, with the assistance of Bridges pairing some IXL skills and the collaboration amongst our math department, we have been able to pair IXL skills with each of the I can't statements, which directly filters into what their post-test, their test and their assessments is actually going to be about. So if they feel like there is something in the no column, this is a like makeshift, like your very own made to order study guide. So whatever is the skills that you feel like are the lowest as a student, you get to pick those and say, hey, this is what I want to practice. This is what I want to review so that I know I'm going to be successful on that post-test. Okay, so then pre and post-test really quickly, and Ms. Backman's going to talk more about the assessment and grading aspect of that, but I just want to let you know pre-test is before the unit. Those never, although we grade them, so again that we can set goals for ourselves and we know where people are at and we know what to teach, those are not going to ever go in the grade book because that's pre-being taught the unit. So if you really think about that, that's, of course they're not going to know everything because they haven't been taught it, right? This isn't direct teaching yet, this is before, this is looking at everything before we start, and then we go through the unit and we take a post-test. And the post-test then is what actually would be a grade book grade, because that would be after we've taught everything. It's what the students can prove and show that they know and what they've mastered. So they get to do that, right? They get to show off what they've learned throughout that unit, and then they get to see their growth, which I'm going to let Ms. Beckman talk more about. The last two big components would be number corner and workplaces. Number corner, and we'll talk about that specifically when we split off 4th grade and 5th grade, but number corner is where they get introduced to most of the concepts going on throughout their grade level Bridges program. So when they go through number corner, it's so important for them. It's only 20 minutes of each period right at the beginning of the day, or right at the beginning of that class period, but they get introduced to concepts that they're gonna constantly be learning. One of the great things about Bridges is that it's a spiraling program. What I mean by that is that Bridges is constantly reinforcing information and skills. So whereas in other curriculums, in old curriculums, they would have been taught a skill, and then it's like, okay, let's hope that they remember that by the time they go to 6th grade, even though they only learned it and talked about it in September in 5th grade. Well, instead, now we're saying, hey, we're going to constantly be covering these. We're going to see it here, we're going to see it next month, and the month after, we're constantly spiraling back. And it just helps students have a much deeper foundational understanding of the mathematical concepts. And then lastly is just workplaces, and you saw that in the video, and we mentioned it a little bit before. That's a way for students to really apply what they know. So when they are applying what they know, they get to play it through games, they're playing it with partners, they're playing things by themselves, but they're constantly practicing those skills that they're learning, and they get to show off what they're going to be doing. And that's going to all tie in and help them to be successful on the post-test. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to hand this off to Ms. Backman to talk about assessment and grading.
Hi everyone, I'm Ms. Backman. As Mrs. Bailey just mentioned, I'm going to be taking over for talking about the assessment and classwork portion of Bridges. Now, with assessments, as Mrs. Bailey emphasized, grade tests are not part of the assessment. It's just to kind of get an understanding of what the child already knows at that point so we can see where to grow throughout the units. Assessments that we take in class include number corner checkups. We just took a number quarter checkup in 4th grade about the skills that we've been talking about daily in our number quarter discussions during class. Other examples of assessments that you see are checkpoints. The checkpoints are based on what we have been covering in class, and they're almost like in the form of a quiz. And that will allow us to see, again, what the children know and where we can continue to grow in class. The final piece of the assessment aspect is the post-assessment. The post-assessment, they happen at the end of every unit, and they're based on all the skills that we've been covering in the lesson portion of Bridges. To go along with the assessments to help build on that knowledge, we do classwork assignments as well. Examples of classwork assignments that we do include IXLs or Bridges book pages, and although those classwork grades aren't as big of a portion of the grade, they are still super crucial to being part of the learning process. What they are doing in class, the classwork and the homework that they are doing, strongly builds on what they are going to see on these checkpoints, checkups, and assessments. So it's really important that you always keep that work ethic at 100% to help you be successful in the long run. To go along with the assessment portion, we also have an example of what you see for student growth, so we can see like where they started and where they will end. So the way that it starts is you look at your pre-test score. Chances are you probably bombed it, and that is okay because these are skills that we haven't learned yet. So if you look at the pink portion of this graph up here for Unit 1, it says that they got a 10 out of 35, which is to be expected. So they shade in like 10% in pink on that paper. Now, as the unit progresses, they are learning the skills and they're acquiring the knowledge. So when it comes time for the post-test, you can see the growth in green. Now it says on the post-test, the child scored a 25 out of 35, which is a 15-point difference, and that's a really big deal. The way that Bridges sees mastery is 75% or higher. That shows if you get a 75% or higher on your post-test, you have met mastery for the content. And at the beginning of each unit, we start off with the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, and it's really like the kids, when they see this, they're like, wow, I really grew a lot in this unit. I started off knowing the bare minimum here, but toward the end, look at how much I grew. And it's kind of eye-opening for them as well to see how much they have expanded on their knowledge.
So, expectation is a C level to mastery?
Mastery is 75 to 100.
So I mean, especially as, you know, Mrs. German said, like this is a rigorous program that we adopted, which is awesome. That's just gonna make Amherst excel and make your students excel. But what I think is really, really cool is, they get so encouraged by this growth, right? That's what I care. I care that you're learning. It's not gonna mean as much if you're getting right in the middle, before and after, because that tells me you're just sitting in class, not listening, you're not applying yourself, you're not doing all this stuff. So I really love giving you the resources to see the growth. And all of the students are making growth, and that's what we care about, and that's what should be celebrated for you at home as well, is hey, let's celebrate these students' growth. It looks like, if you look at that first one, what is like 1%? Yeah, but that's awesome, that's huge growth. And mastery, like we just said, is 75 to 100%, that's meeting the standards. Meeting the standards means, hey, I know and understand the concepts and that I'm going to be going forward. So that is definitely a standard that I think would be awesome to achieve. Okay, so some examples of things, again, that you can do at home. Examples of homework that you often will see in your classes would be Reflex, IXL, finishing Bridges student workbook that didn't get finished in class, and the Home Connections, which is another workbook that you could be doing at home. That your teachers you'll be seeing pages of those come home every once in a while. Additional resources, again, those are found in the unit reflections that I already went over, and they're shared by your classroom teacher as you approach each unit. So you will see those, and those can be, sent out through Google Classroom, Power School, however your teacher is participating.
All right, thank you so much for coming out here tonight. If you have any additional questions about anything that we have discussed, feel free to reach out to your classroom teacher at any time.
All right, good morning, class. Thank you for coming to Number Corner. So today is Monday, meaning that we need to catch up with our Number Corner from Saturday and Sunday since we weren't here. Now, looking at the patterns so far for the month, we have been working on elapsed time. Can anybody remind me what elapsed time is, what it means? Yeah. Yeah.
And elapsed time is, which means that how much time has passed. What does n/a mean?
That means not applicable because we have no elapsed time for the first day. So Adam mentioned elapsed time is the amount of time that progresses throughout a certain period. So every day we are going through our Number Corner, our clock is changing. Now, what do we notice that's happening as these clocks are changing? What's happening to the backgrounds of these pictures? Yes, go ahead.
The weather, like the time is kind of changing. Now the sun is rising.
Yeah, the time is changing. Obviously, it's nighttime here because we see the stars and the moon, and it kind of ombres into a sunrise here, and then the sun starts to rise, and we're at morning time at this point. So, on our first day of November, we were at 12 o'clock a.m. Does anybody know another name for 12 a.m.? What else is 12 a.m. called? It's a word, it starts with an M. Midnight. 12 o'clock a.m. is midnight. So when it's dark at nighttime, this is a.m. Now, as we progressed throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we noticed that we had an elapsed time of 1 hour and 10 minutes that we were adding every single day until we reached the 7th day of November. What happened to our elapsed time starting on the 8th day? Look at, we read 1 hour and 10 minutes we added each day. What happened right here? What did we start to add? Yeah. We started adding 1 hour and 20 minutes. We added an additional 10 minutes to our elapsed time. So, on Friday, when we left before the weekend, we landed on 1:40 p.m. We established that that was 1 hour and 20 minutes of elapsed time prior to 12:20 p.m. And we've had a total elapsed time of 13 hours and 40 minutes in all. Adding them up in our elapsed time column since first day. Does anybody have any predictions for what we might have seen on Saturday if we were at school? Thinking about if we were at 1:40 p.m. on Friday and we're adding 1 hour and 20 minutes every day, what might we see for Saturday? Yes? So if we're adding another hour and 20 minutes, maybe it's going to be 2 o'clock. What else do we think it might be? Any other predictions? There are no wrong answers. Think about 1 hour and 20 minutes past 1:40. What happens if, yeah, have an idea?
2 o'clock.
Do you think 2 o'clock as well? So what happens if I add 1 hour to 1:40? How much, what is our elapsed time? An hour later? Yes.
2:40.
So 2:40 is 1 hour later. What if we add 20 minutes to 2:40? What time will we have then? Yes? 3 o'clock. So if we have an elapsed time of 1 hour and 20 minutes, we can probably predict that we're going to see 3 o'clock. Let's find out. What time do we see for Saturday? We see 3 o'clock. Now, is this 3 o'clock a.m. or p.m.? Yes? You think it's 3 o'clock in the morning? So I'm looking at my calendar. Looks like we had 3:30 a.m. on the 4th day. What does that a.m. look like for 3:30? Yeah, so it's a.m., so it's like the first part of our day. What do you notice about the background of this picture? It's still nighttime at 3 in the morning. It's dark outside. I'm in bed sleeping. So as we pass through the clocks, we reached p.m. at 12:20 here in the 11th day. Does anybody else have a guess for what this is going to be? a.m. or p.m.? This is going to be 3 o'clock p.m. We've already gone through the a.m. portion of our morning. So, on my calendar grid, we found that it was 3 o'clock p.m. on Saturday. Does anybody know what I should put in my elapsed time column if we're following the pattern from the days before? An hour and 20 minutes have elapsed since 1:40 p.m. 1 hour and 20 minutes. Now, we need to figure out how much time has elapsed since the first day of November. So we left off with 13 hours and 40 minutes. We now need to add an hour and 20 minutes to this time. Does anybody know how much time has passed since? 16 hours. Let's see. So I have an hour. So I have 14 hours. What happens when I add 20 minutes to 40 minutes? 20 plus 40. 60 minutes. What happens when we reach 60 minutes? It's another hour that we are adding. So we have 14, we are at 15 hours that have passed since the first day of November. What was that at the first one? We have 13, we're adding an hour for 14, and we had a unit conversion between 20 and 40 minutes to 60, another hour. Okay, so that is Saturday. Now, let's see what time we have on Sunday. We reached the top of another hour, and sometimes we've found that another 10 minutes have been added since then. What time do we see for Sunday? Yeah, I see that my hour hand is in between the 4 and the 5, which tells me that my hour is on the 4, and my minute hand is on the 6, which is 30. So we have 4:30 p.m. for Sunday. How much time has elapsed from 3 o'clock p.m. to 4:30 p.m.? 1 hour and 30 minutes. Oh my goodness. What happened to my pattern? I reached the top of another hour. What happened? My pattern changed. How much time did I add to my pattern? How many minutes? We added an additional 10 minutes to our pattern. Now our elapsed time is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So with that in mind, we now need to figure out how much time has passed overall. We need to add 1 hour and 30 minutes to this 15 hours in this column. Well, how much time has elapsed since the first day of November? We're up to 15. We're adding 1 hour and 30. Do you have an idea? 16 hours and 30 minutes. Excellent. Does anybody have a prediction? Now we're on Monday, so we're back at school. How much time do we think is going to elapse today if we're following this pattern? How much time? Maybe we'll see an elapsed time of 1 hour and 30 minutes. What happens if I add 1 hour and 30 minutes to 4:30? An idea?
I wasn't meaning that. You had S's on the ends of both the mids except for one of them.
Oh. Easy fix, isn't it? Okay, so back to my original question. If 1 hour and 30 minutes passes from 4:30, what time will it be? Probably going to be 6 o'clock. Now, a.m. or p.m.? p.m. Let's see what the clock shows. What time do you see on today's clock? 6 o'clock. I see that my hour hand is on the 6 and my minute hand is on the 12, telling me that we are at the start of the next hour. So, 6 o'clock, and we've established that it's going to be p.m. And how much time has passed from 4:30 to 6? Remind me? Yes? Fine. So we're following the pattern from the day before. How much time passed then? 1 hour and 30 minutes has passed. Okay, now we need to figure out how much time has passed in all. We are adding 1 hour and 30 minutes to 16 hours and 30 minutes. Do you have an idea? It would be 18 hours. We add 1 hour to 16, we get 17. What happens when I do 30 minutes plus 30 minutes?
You get 60 minutes.
have another unit conversion. 60 minutes equals an hour, so we are going to tack that on to our final answer here. 18 hours have elapsed since the first day of November. So that's it for number corner we're up to date now. But does anybody have any predictions for what you think we might see tomorrow? You have an idea?
Another hour and 30.
Maybe our hour and 30-minute pattern is going to continue tomorrow. Maybe we will see 7:30. Does anybody have another prediction for what we might see? Maybe we'll go back down to an hour and 20 minutes, and maybe we'll start taking 10 minutes away. Maybe we will continue to progress with the amount of minutes that we are adding, and maybe it'll go to an hour and 40 minutes.
I think we're still going to have 1 hour and 30.
Yeah.
I've noticed that there's six things of each thing.
Oh, okay, so for 1 hour and 10 minutes, you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. For an hour and 20 minutes, you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times as well. So maybe we'll see this 6 times. Yes?
Maybe it's probably going to change from 1 hour to 2 hours.
Oh, maybe we'll convert to another hour. Do you think it'll be 2 hours or 2 hours and 30 minutes?
2 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay, so maybe we're just going to add another 2 hours and 30 minutes onto that. Excellent. So we will find out tomorrow what we will see, and that is it for our number corner today. All right, so that was an example of a number corner a discussion that you see at the start of every class period. Usually to go along with this discussion that we have on the board, we have a number corner book. I refer to it as the little book because they have the big one and the little one, and we will do a work activity based on that. For example, last Friday we completed an activity called Twins Day of School. Does anybody remember Twins Day of School from their number corner lesson? I know my kids did it. None of you were mine, but we did it in our class. And the way that it worked, it walked me through the Twins' day. They woke up at 7 o'clock. They got to school at 8:30. How much time has elapsed between the time that they woke up to the time that they got to school? And it also related into like personal questions as well. Like, what is something that you spend the majority of your day doing? Sleeping, right? I spend most of my day sleeping, or I spend most of my day at school. So it relates to stuff that you do in your daily lives as well. All right, so that is our number corner portion. I have set around the room fan favorite workplace games. At least they're fan favorite from my classes, so I'm hoping that they're the same for you all. I have set up Cover Up, Dragon's Gold, and Division Capture. Now, kids, you are going to introduce these workplace games to your families. And if you don't exactly remember how to play, that is okay. I have left plenty of copies of the instruction at the table as well. And Mrs. Levitt and I will be walking around the room to help you if you have any questions. Now, just ask us if you have any questions at all. There are also materials that you need to play the games. For example, dice, spinners, markers, crayons. I ask that at the end of the game you put them back in their container so I can bring them back to my classroom and return those that I borrowed from other teachers. So at this time, I have Cover Up, I believe Division Capture right there at this table, Dragon's Gold, and Cover Up, or Division, yes. So you can pick any game that you would like. That's the beauty of workplaces. You get to pick which one you want to do that day.
Okay, so number corner. I'm showing you an example that's actually number corner from September, and the reason I want to show you September is because I want to talk to you about how we've already applied it, and you can kind of see how number corner works. So in number corner, we got each day will flip over a new marker. I already put some up here because I wanted you to be able to see the pattern and kind of see what we're doing, and then we continue to talk about what will be next. So, for example here, we started out in September saying, hey, we're going to just talk about money and time. And we're going to talk about what that looks like to add money and time. And we showed the students, that this is $1. So we use what we call a hundredth grid to show that this this is $1, right? Because $1 is worth how many cents? 100, right? You guys can participate, that's okay. So 100 grids, because it's 100 cents is $1. So then obviously a $half would be half, or how many cents? 50 cents, right? So we've got our $half, then we've got a quarter of $1, or 1/4 of $1, which would be 25 cents, right? And then we've got, going lower, thinking about all of the coins that we have a dime, which is gonna be 1/10 of our dollar, right? We've got half of that being 1/20th of our dollar is a nickel, and our little pennies are obviously 1/100th, right? Because that's going to be, you would need 100 of those to make a full dollar. So we introduced them to those, and then we also introduced them to the concept of using blocks to add fractions. So thinking about a clock has how many equal parts if I were to just cut it on every single number? Anyone know? How many equal parts would a clock have? 12, great, they'd have 12. Or how many minutes are in an hour?
You said it.
Yeah, 60, exactly. So you could have either 12 equal parts, or you could think about it being 60 minutes, right? 60 equal parts if I cut it at every single minute. And so that's what we talked about, how we introduced the concept of our calendar grid. And then students, we really start to look through it. So we would have said, okay, looking at this first one, I'm seeing 25 squares, that's 1/4 of our 100th. 25 squares means it's what coin? A quarter, right? So then I'm gonna look at a quarter, and I'm gonna say, okay, a quarter plus a quarter. And we're gonna just talk about the different ways that we could write that. Okay, so students might have said, hey, that's 25 and 25 is 50. Hey, that's, or 25 out of 100 plus 25 out of 100. Or that's 1/4 plus 1/4. And they've got all these awesome different ways that they're coming up with how to add these fractions and what that looks like. We go to the next day and we do the same thing with a clock. Once they start to really get a ton of days out here on the board, they get to really think through, hey, what kind of patterns are we noticing? So what I want you guys to do is I want you, and we show these post-its to show what the fraction is that they're talking about, but take a minute and I want you to just look and talk to the person next to you about what you notice on this grid and how these patterns might be coming up. So just take a minute and talk about what you might notice with the person next to you.
You can't see something, stand up, or you can move. You're allowed to move.
Right.
You can do a circle.
So what are some things that we noticed? Who can share? I heard you.
Yeah,
what were you saying? I know, what were you saying? So they're showing you repeatedly, right, to really make sure we have that foundation. They're repeatedly showing you, hey, this is going to be 1/4 in money. This is 1/4 in a clock. This is what 1/2 looks like in money. This is what it looks like in a clock. And so on and so forth. Anybody notice any other patterns that started to happen? Kat? Huh? So it obviously, yeah, it went time, clock, or money, time, yeah. Anyone notice what happens starting here? What happened to that top number versus starting at the beginning? Those top and bottom numbers.
Or what did you notice about all of the top numbers for the first 10 days?
They're all what? Okay, so then those bottom numbers switch from 4 to 10, 5, 20. What do you notice starts to happen here though? What's the top number change to? It starts to change to 2. So if we are knowing our pattern of money, time, knowing our pattern of what's happening to our numerators, our top numbers versus our denominators, anybody have a prediction about what day, what is this, 14 would show?
Yeah.
People, give me a second, but thank you, I love Noah. What are you making a prediction about what fraction you think might be represented here on that number 14? Knowing what we've talked about our patterns. Talk to the person next to you and tell them what you think. All right, Noah, what are you thinking? Putting you on the spot. Yeah, 2 halves plus 2 halves. And we can see that because it's showing a $half plus a $half, right? So another great thing is that this now not only starts to talk about fractions, but whole numbers, right? Because a $half and a $half is going to be $1, right? So I have $1 plus $1, or a full clock plus a full clock. So we're starting to get into whole numbers as well to get to 2. So then we would record our information here is what we would typically do. And then the other component is there's usually two aspects to number corner. There's a calendar grid, which is obviously what we just went over, and then there's layer day, or some other type of concept that we talk about. And I'll mention, one of the great things about number corner is, like I said, it introduces future concepts. So this was September, right? So then we started Unit 2 in October at some point. We started Unit 2. And Unit 2 starts off the bat saying, hey, let's talk about how to add and subtract fractions with making unlike denominators common. And so immediately students started to be like, oh, well, if I have a clock, I can think of this in terms of a clock or money. If I've got 1/5 plus 1/5, I can think of that in terms of a clock, or I can think of that in terms of a money and solve it way quicker because I already saw all of this in September. So in the same way, they use this thing called layer day where we said, okay, we've got a 6 by 5. You hold that, Mr. Moen. So he said, okay, let's count this base. Yep, 6 by 5. And so we say, okay, well, if we just want to find the area of that base, what do we have to do? If I just want to find the area, knowing my area is my length times my width, and I know that's 6 and 5, what do we need to do? Yeah, so what is that? 6 times 5? 30. So then I'd say, okay, that's 30 square units. And how many layers are we looking at right now? Show me with your fingers. Yeah, we're looking at 1 layer right now. So I know that my volume, which I'm then going to be saying is times how many layers, or multiplying by my height, is still going to be 30. However, if then the next day we were to take it and we add a layer, we're now saying, hey, we're taking that 30, that base, but we're multiplying it by 2 now, right? And so I'm going to be doubling my volume to 60 cubic units. And then if I did the same thing, I'm going to be doing it and adding a 3rd layer. I'm still going to be getting now 90 units. So we did that one first. Yep. And then we said, okay, let's stop there for a minute and look at a 3 by 5. So a 3 by 5 would look like this. So we looked at a 3 by 5 and we started adding layer by layer in the same way we did that one. And eventually, after 6 layers, we said, hey, this is also 90 cubic units. Well, these shapes don't look the same. So how are they both 90 cubic units? How are these both have 90 cubes making them up when they look different? But we found in our patterns that our 6 that was over here in our original base was really just our number of layers in this one. And we found that, hey, our 3 and in the 6 by 5, we found out it was 3 layers, which is the missing number that's over here. And we said, hey, if we have those same 3 numbers, no matter which way we multiply them, it's still going to give us 90 cubic units. So really, we found out, hey, that is the same. I just turned it on its side, essentially. But the great thing, again, is after we did this, and it's such a small component. Like I said, this is 15, 20 minutes. So this is such a small component to what we're spending the whole day doing. But we immediately then go into Unit 2, and they're saying, hey, we want to start actually finding the volume. Well, great. We already know how to find volume because we've, every single day, been adding a layer and saying, how does that change? What does that do? Does that make sense? So Number Corner is a great introduction to what's going to be going on in future units. So that was September's. In October, we started talking about coordinate grids, and we were graphing these rotting carrots in our classrooms as we graphed those because they were losing weight, and we kind of saw what that would do to a carrot and what that would look like. And now we're talking about coordinate grids and how to plot points and what that looks like. So it all filters in, and like I said, it constantly is spiraling back just to reinforce those skills and that knowledge.
So do you do number corner every day?
Yep.
As a whole group?
Yep. Yep, number corners for everybody every day. It's like the first thing we start off.
In my brain, when my kid was talking about it at home, I was like thinking you guys were with like a small group, and these guys were doing this number corner, and then these guys were doing like that differentiated.
Right. No, we all have the same number corner. We all do it every single day. So all of 5th grade is getting number corner every day.
Okay.
Yes, and that goes for all the grades, in fact, not even just 5th. But yeah, so that's essentially how number corner works and introduces them to the concepts. And then the way that we do small groups would be throughout workplaces, when students often at the end, after we finish, so we might start with number corner, go into a Bridges lesson, and then after the lesson say, okay, let's play workplaces. And during workplaces, while students are pairing together and playing a workplace game, we would say, hey, let's pull some people that we really want to focus on a certain skill on and focus on that in our small group. Or even if I need a conference with somebody one-on-one, I could pull them and do that at that time. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's how we would, kind of get in all those different components within a day. And we're gonna move on here in a minute to workplaces. But are there any number corner questions? Makes pretty much sense. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, the great thing about all of this is that they're getting to then prove their knowledge in the assessments, which is why the assessments this year are often just weighted as a heavier weight, because they're proving their knowledge, right? It's not just, oh, I can now do my homework and classwork and know that I'm gonna be getting an A. It's, hey, you need to prove your knowledge and show me that you're actually paying attention and learning. And that's how we're seeing that awesome growth, is because they're applying what they're learning. And they're really participating and engaging in the learning and saying, hey, I understand conceptually what I'm talking about, and I can apply that knowledge. Awesome. So,
can I just chime in?
Yes,
What November is, we're doing metric system. So they have like 1 meter, about this long.
Right.
And then each day we build on that and talk about, okay, well, how many centimeters would that be? How many decimeters would that be? And that is preparing them for decimals, because the metric system makes a lot more sense in terms of place value and decimals than the system we use. So it's kind of preparing them for, so kind of another example of how, like Mrs. Bailey was saying, how it prepares them for something coming.
Were you going to say something, Mr.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. And so, yeah, hopefully you can see how just hands-on this is, because, going through this is so like, wow, what's going on? And even in the midst of looking at things differently, that's the idea. So let's touch something, let's feel it, let's talk about it, let's write it. In so many different ways you're learning it, and that's the goal. So these are just pieces, and they're going to come in so many different ways. So when we go over to this number of this workplaces here, I want to say that this is something that you're going to experience, that if you need extra practice, we put these, most of us have them online all the time, so you can go ahead and say, hey, let's work on your fractions. Well, there's 3 different games or 5 different games. Which one looks more fun to you? Or, hey, can you teach me how to play this? I don't know what this game is. I'll even have instructions, and we're gonna. So as we go and experience this, we were hoping that, I think this is how it's gonna help you, is that not only just, I know there's a lot of terms and there's a lot of talk right now, but when you experience it, I think it's gonna really help your son or daughter when you go, okay, how can I do these resources? Where are you coming from when you experience it yourself, with our help as well? And then we think we can further help you more with, again, what we're going to send home in emails from here on out, every unit. So that's why we're having you experience this. So I don't know if you think it's fun, we think it's fun, and I think you're going to have a great time. So that's the method behind all this, if that makes sense as well, too. So,
yeah, I mean, I can easily come up and tell students and say, to find value, you need to do length times width times height, every single time. Length times width times height, and just say, hey, go do it, go do it, go do it. But are they really understanding what that looks like, what that means? If I'm saying, okay, now like I want to fill a swimming pool, and I'm like, well, what does that mean in length times width times height if I'm just repeatedly punching in these numbers, punching in this formula? Well, when I actually get to see, oh, the height is just me adding another layer of that same base, it's totally a different game. Like you said, it's so much more hands-on, and it just really helps them to understand better what they're talking about.
I do think it's it's hard, and I don't want to speak for all the parents here,
right,
but it is hard for me to figure out that's how you're teaching it, because what you said is how I was taught.
Right.
You have to know.
Same with us,
Right, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it is. It's a learning curve for us as well, in the same way. But I think those unit overviews that are going to start being sent out, those are going to be the thing that I think is going to help you the most with that, because those are the thing where it says, oh, this is the way you're probably used to this being taught, but this is the way Bridges is kind of showing how to conceptually understand it.
Or multiple emails to her teacher.
Okay. We're going to know each other here well. We're going to go out to dinner next week, I think. Dinner next week, Ms. Garner? All right.
All right,
and I don't think there's anything wrong with you sharing, like, okay, here's 1/3. This is how I learned what 1/3 is. I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing how, I mean, we're constantly, sometimes some of the stuff, I'm going to be honest, doesn't work, and we have to show them the traditional way.
Bridges
Which
is all
happens.
about finding a million different ways how to solve one problem. So you're just adding a tool in that toolbox.
And our biggest challenge is this is a K-5 program. And these guys are starting it in 5th grade. So they haven't
had the backing.
Each year, I think they're going to come a little more prepared, but the 5th graders,
we understand,
which is taking some getting used to.
Right, but I mean, I really do, like, you know, like Mr. Mullen said, it's not bad to teach that. It's not bad to be like, hey, this is the traditional way of doing it, and that's okay to see it and to know it and to be able to do it that way.
2 + 3 is still 5.
Right, that's not changing. And I mean, I even tell like students, like, it's okay to solve a problem in a different way that I haven't taught the problem. Now, when we're learning something new, I want you to attempt to you know, practice it and work on it and do it that way. But when you're taking a test, if there's a certain way that works best for you and the test doesn't specify anything, but do what works for you. Like, do what works for you, because ultimately, like, that's what you're trying to do. I'm just adding and giving you resources and things that you can use. So,
Well, this is K through 5. In 6th grade, will they pick up with more literal, less conceptual, like a repetition?
We don't know yet.
They're actually going through an adoption process this year. For I think it's K8 or K12. I'm not sure what the adoption is going to be for.
I believe it's going to be whatever this program is called at that level. I think that's what they're going with. I don't know for sure. But
I know it's not what they're doing.
It would be hard for the 5th graders to have a 3rd new program, you know.
Right.
So
hopefully it kind of builds off this. Yeah, that's what we're all advocating for. Yeah.
But the standards have not changed. I mean, I've taught many different math programs, and the standards are still the same. I mean, it's all heavily fractions, decimals. That hasn't changed. So
and I truly believe whatever the program is that they're going to go into in 6th grade, whatever they choose to adopt, they're going to know so much about just like how to think through math. They're going to be able to master it a lot easier than they were before. So I think it'll be good anyway. But yeah. All right.
Well, how about we do this? What we'll do is, I was looking at kind of the numbers here. We're going to go on the outsides of the tables. Let's go about probably, we'll try, there's going to be some tables with more than one family. So just one family, there's 7 tables. Obviously, there's more than that. So we'll double up a few people. So no more than 2 families at a table. And we're going to match teachers to help explain the games. So at this time, we'll start just gathering you around. And what we'll do is experience the game. We're going to help you. There's instructions on every. So if there's not one of us there, there's instructions you'll see, and you start reading them. Do the best you can to try to figure it out. If we're not there, but we'll be there to help you out. And then play it. And then if you want to stick around afterwards and just kind of pick your teacher and just talk to them a little bit, you're welcome to. But then we'll just let you know when it's 6:30, and then we can go from that.